Successful corporations must primarily produce brands as opposed to products. Until that time, although it was understood in the corporate world that bolstering one's brand name was important, the primary concern of every solid manufacturer was the production of goods. This idea was the very gospel of the machine age. An editorial that appeared in Fortune magazine in 1938, for instance, argued that the reason the American economy had yet to recover from the Depression was that America had lost sight of the importance of making things. This is the proposition that the basic and irreversible function of an industrial economy is the making of things, that the more things it makes, the bigger will be the income, whether dollar or real, and hence that the key to those lost recuperative powers lies in the factory, where the lathes and the drills and the fires and the hammers are. It is in the factory and on the land and under the land that purchasing power originates. And for the longest time, the making of things remained, at least in principle, the heart of all industrialized economies. But by the 80s, pushed along by that decade's recession, some of the most powerful manufacturers in the world had begun to falter. A consensus emerged that corporations were bloated, oversized, they owned too much, employed too many people, and were weighed down with too many things. The very process of producing, running one's own factories, being responsible for tens of thousands of full-time permanent employees, began to look less like the route to success and more like a clunky liability. At around this same time, a new kind of corporation began to rival the traditional all-American manufacturers for market share. These were the Nikes and Microsofts, and later the Tommy Hilfigers and Intels. These pioneers made the bold claim that producing goods was only an incidental part of their operations, and that thanks to recent victories in trade liberalization and labor law reform, they were able to have their products made for them by contractors, many of them overseas. What these companies produced primarily were not things, they said, but images of their brands. Their real work lay not in manufacturing, but in marketing. This formula, needless to say, has proved enormously profitable, and its success has companies competing in a race toward weightlessness. Whoever owns the least, has the fewest employees on the payroll, and produces the most powerful images, as opposed to products, wins the race. And so, the wave of mergers in the corporate world over the last few years is a deceptive phenomenon. It only looks as if the giants, by joining forces, are getting bigger and bigger. The true key to understanding these shifts is to realize that in several crucial ways, not their profits, of course, these merged companies are actually shrinking. Their apparent bigness is simply the most effective route toward their real goal, divestment of the world of things. Since many of today's best-known manufacturers no longer produce products and advertise them, but rather buy products and brand them, these companies are forever on the prowl for creative new ways to build and strengthen their brand images. Manufacturing products may require drills, furnaces, hammers, and the like, but creating a brand calls for a completely different set of tools and materials. It requires an endless parade of brand extensions, continuously renewed imagery for marketing, and, most of all, fresh new spaces to disseminate the brand's idea of itself. In this section of the book, I'll look at how, in ways both insidious and overt, this corporate obsession with brand identity is waging a war on public and individual space, on public institutions, such as schools, on youthful identities, on the concept of nationality, and on the possibilities for unmarketed space. The beginning of the brand. It's helpful to go back briefly and look at where the idea of branding first began. Though the words are often used interchangeably, branding and advertising are not the same process. Advertising any given product is only one part of branding's grand plan, as are sponsorship and logo licensing. Think of the brand as the core meaning of the modern corporation, and of the advertisement as one vehicle used to convey that meaning to the world.